Section 10 of The Chorus Girl and Other Stories. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Chorus Girl and Other Stories by Anton Chekhov. Translated by Constance Garnett. I admit I have had a drop. You must excuse me. I went into a beer shop on the way here, and it was so hot I had a couple of bottles. It's hot, my boy. Old Musatov took a nondescript rag out of his pocket and wiped his shaven, battered face with it. I have come only for a minute, Borenka, my angel, he went on, not looking at his son, about something very important. Excuse me, perhaps I am hindering you. Haven't you 10 roubles, my dear, you could let me have till Tuesday? You see, I ought to have paid for my lodging yesterday. And money, you see. None? Not to save my life? Young Musatov went out without a word and began whispering the other side of the door with the landlady of the summer villa and his colleagues who had taken the villa with him. 3 minutes later he came back and without a word gave his father a 10-rouble note. The latter thrust it carelessly into his pocket without looking at it and said, "Merci. Well, how are you getting on? It's a long time since we met." "Yes, a long time, not since Easter. 6 times I have been meaning to come to you, but I've never had time. First one thing, then another. It's simply awful. I am talking nonsense, so. All that's nonsense. Don't you believe me, Borenka? I said I would pay you back the 10 roubles on Tuesday. Don't believe that either. Don't believe a word I say. I have nothing to do at all. It's simply laziness, drunkenness, and I am ashamed to be seen in such clothes on the street. You must excuse me, Borenka. Here I have sent the girl to you 3 times for money and written you piteous letters. Thanks for the money, but don't believe the letters. I was telling fibs. I am ashamed to rob you, my angel. I know that you can scarcely make both ends meet yourself and feed on locusts, but my impudence is too much for me. I am such a specimen of impudence, fit for a show. You must excuse me, Borenka. I tell you the truth because I can't see your angel face without emotion." A minute passed in silence. The old man heaved a deep sigh and said, "You might treat me to a glass of beer, perhaps." His son went out without a word, and again there was a sound of whispering the other side of the door. When a little later the beer was brought in, the old man seemed to revive at the sight of the bottles and abruptly changed his tone. "I was at the races the other day, my boy," he began telling him, assuming a scared expression. "We were a party of 3, and we pulled 3 roubles on Frisky. And thanks to that Frisky, we got 32 roubles each for our rouble. I can't get on without the races, my boy. It's a gentlemanly diversion. My virago always gives me a dressing over the races, but I go. I love it, and that's all about it." Boris, a fair-haired young man with a melancholy, immobile face, was walking slowly up and down, listening in silence. When the old man stopped to clear his throat, he went up to him and said, "I bought myself a pair of boots the other day, father, which turned out to be too tight for me. Won't you take them? I'll let you have them cheap." "If you like," said the old man with a grimace, "only for the price you gave for them, without any cheapening." "Very well, I'll let you have them on credit." The son groped under the bed and produced the new boots. The father took off his clumsy, rusty, evidently second-hand boots and began trying on the new ones. "A perfect fit," he said. "Right, let me keep them, and on Tuesday, when I get my pension, I'll send you the money for them. That's not true, though," he went on, suddenly falling into the same tearful tone again. "And it was a lie about the races, too, and a lie about the pension. And you are deceiving me, Borenka. I feel your generous tactfulness. I see through you. Your boots were too small because your heart is too big. Ah, Borenka, Borenka, I understand it all and feel it." "Have you moved into new lodgings?" his son interrupted, to change the conversation. "Yes, my boy, I move every month, My virago can't stay long in the same place with her temper. I went to your lodgings. I meant to ask you to stay here with me. In your state of health it would do you good to be in the fresh air." "No," said the old man, with a wave of his hand. "The woman wouldn't let me, and I shouldn't care to myself. 100 times you have tried to drag me out of the pit, and I have tried myself, but nothing came of it. Give it up. I must stick to my filthy hole. This minute here I am sitting looking at your angel face, yet something is drawing me home to my hole. Such is my fate. You can't draw a dung beetle to a rose. But it's time I was going, my boy. It's getting dark." "Wait a minute, then. I'll come with you. I have to go to town today myself." Both put on their overcoats and went out. When a little while afterwards they were driving in a cab, it was already dark, and lights began to gleam in the windows. "I've robbed you, Borenka," his father muttered. "Poor children, poor children. It must be a dreadful trouble to have such a father. Borenka, my angel, I cannot lie when I see your face. You must excuse me. What my depravity has come to, my God. Here I have just been robbing you, and put you to shame with my drunken state. I am robbing your brothers too, and put them to shame, and you should have seen me yesterday. I won't conceal it, Borenka. Some neighbours, a wretched crew, came to see my virago. I got drunk too with them, and I blackguarded you poor children for all I was worth. I abused you and complained that you had abandoned me. I wanted, you see, to touch the drunken hussies' hearts, and pose as an unhappy father. It's my way, you know, when I want to screen my vices. I throw all the blame on my innocent children. I can't tell lies and hide things from you, Borenka. I came to see you, as proud as a peacock, but when I saw your gentleness and kind heart, my tongue clave to the roof of my mouth, and it upset my conscience completely." "Hush, father, let's talk of something else." "Mother of God, what children I have!" the old man went on, not heeding his son. "What wealth God has bestowed on me! Such children ought not to have had such a black sheep like me for a father, but a real man with soul and feeling. I am not worthy of you." The old man took off his cap with a button at the top and crossed himself several times. "Thanks be to thee, O Lord," he said with a sigh, looking from side to side as though seeking for an icon. "Remarkable, exceptional children. I have 3 sons, and they are all like one. Sober, steady, hard-working, and what brains! Cabman, what brains! Grigory alone has brains enough for 10. He speaks French, he speaks German, and talks better than any of your lawyers. One is never tired of listening. My children, I can't believe that you are mine. I can't believe it. You are a martyr, my Borenka. I am ruining you, and I shall go on ruining you. You give to me endlessly, though you know your money is thrown away. The other day I sent you a pitiful letter. I described how ill I was, but you know I was lying. I wanted the money for rum, and you give to me because you are afraid to wound me by refusing. I know all that, and feel it. Grisha's a martyr too. On Thursday I went to his office, drunk, filthy, ragged, reeking of vodka like a cellar. I went straight up, such a figure. I pestered him with a nasty talk, while his colleagues and superiors and petitioners were standing round. I have disgraced him for life. And he wasn't the least confused, only turned a bit pale, but smiled and came up to me as though there were nothing the matter, even introduced me to his colleagues. Then he took me all the way home, and not a word of reproach. I robbed him worse than you. Take your brother Sasha now. He's a martyr too. He married, as you know, a colonel's daughter of an aristocratic circle, and got a dowry with her. You would think he would have nothing to do with me. No, brother, after his wedding he came with his young wife and paid me the first visit, in my hole, upon my soul." The old man gave a sob and then began laughing. And at that moment, as luck would have it, we were eating grated radish with kvass and frying fish, and there was a stink enough in the flat to make the devil sick. I was lying down. I'd had a drop. My virago bounced out at the young people, with her face crimson. It was a disgrace, in fact, but Sasha rose superior to it all. "Yes, our Sasha is a good fellow," said Boris. "The most splendid fellow. You are all pure gold, you and Grisha and Sasha and Sonia. I worry you, torment you, disgrace you, rob you, and all my life I have not heard one word of reproach from you. You have never given me one cross look. It would be all very well if I had been a decent father to you, but as it is, you have had nothing from me but harm. I am a bad, dissipated man. Now, thank God, I am quieter, and I have no strength of will. But in old days, when you were little, I had determination, will. Whatever I said or did, I always thought it was right. Sometimes I'd come home from the club at night, drunk and ill-humoured, and scold at your poor mother for spending money. The whole night I would be railing at her and think it the right thing to do. You would get up in the morning and go to school, while I'd still be venting my temper upon her. Heavens, I did torture her, poor martyr. When you came back from school and I was asleep, you didn't dare to have dinner till I got up. At dinner again there would be a flare-up. I dare say you remember. I wish no one such a father. God sent me to you for a trial. Yes, for a trial. Hold out, children, to the end. Honour thy father, and thy days shall be long. Perhaps for your noble conduct God will grant you long life. Cabman, stop!" The old man jumped out of the cab and ran into a tavern. Half an hour later he came back, cleared his throat in a drunken way, and sat down beside his son. "Where's Sonia now?" he asked. "Still at boarding school?" "No, she left in May, and is living now with Sasha's mother-in-law." "There!" said the old man in surprise. "She is a jolly good girl. So she is following her brother's example. Ah, Borenka, she has no mother, no one to rejoice over her. I say, Borenka, does she know how I am living, eh?" Boris made no answer. 5 minutes passed in profound silence. The old man gave a sob, wiped his face with a rag, and said, "I love her, Borenka. She is my only daughter, you know, and in one's old age there is no comfort like a daughter. Could I see her, Borenka?" "Of course, when you like." "Really? And she won't mind?" "Of course not. She has been trying to find you, so as to see you." "Upon my soul, what children! Cabman, eh?" "Arrange it, Borenka, darling. She is a young lady now, délicatesse consommée, and all the rest of it in a refined way, and I don't want to show myself to her in such an abject state. I'll tell you how we'll contrive to work it. For 3 days I will keep away from spirits, to get my filthy, drunken phiz into better order. Then I'll come to you, and you shall lend me for the time some suit of yours. I'll shave and have my hair cut. Then you go and bring her to your flat, will you?" "Very well. Cabman, stop!" The old man sprang out of the cab again and ran into a tavern. While Boris was driving with him to his lodging, he jumped out twice again, while his son sat silent and waited patiently for him. When, after dismissing the cab, they made their way across a long, filthy yard into the virago's lodging, the old man put on an utterly shamefaced and guilty air, and began timidly clearing his throat and clicking with his lips. "Borenka," he said in an ingratiating voice, "if my virago begins saying anything, don't take any notice, and behave to her, you know, affably. She is ignorant and impudent, but she's a good baggage. There is a good, warm heart beating in her bosom." The long yard ended, and Boris found himself in a dark entry. The swing door creaked. There was a smell of cooking and a smoking samovar. There was a sound of harsh voices. Passing through the passage into the kitchen, Boris could see nothing but thick smoke, a line with washing on it, and the chimney of the samovar, through a crack of which golden sparks were dropping. "And here is my cell," said the old man, stooping down and going into a little room with a low-pitched ceiling, and an atmosphere unbearably stifling from the proximity of the kitchen. Here 3 women were sitting at the table regaling themselves. Seeing the visitors, they exchanged glances and left off eating. "Well, did you get it?" One of them, apparently the virago herself, asked abruptly. Yes, muttered the old man. "Well, Boris, pray sit down. Everything is plain here, young man. We live in a simple way." He bustled about in an aimless way. He felt ashamed before his son, and at the same time apparently he wanted to keep up before the women his dignity as cock of the walk, and as a forsaken, unhappy father. "Yes, young man, we live simply with no nonsense," he went on muttering. "We are simple people, young man. We are not like you. We don't want to keep up a show before people. No. Shall we have a drink of vodka?" One of the women, she was ashamed to drink before a stranger, heaved a sigh and said, "Well, I'll have another drink on account of the mushrooms. They are such mushrooms. They make you drink even if you don't want to. Ivan Gerasimych, offer the young gentleman. Perhaps he will have a drink." The last word she pronounced in a mincing drawl. "Have a drink, young man," said the father, not looking at his son. "We have no wine or liqueurs, my boy. We live in a plain way." "He doesn't like our ways," sighed the virago. Never mind, he'll have a drink." Not to offend his father by refusing, Boris took a wine-glass and drank in silence. When they brought in the samovar to satisfy the old man, he drank 2 cups of disgusting tea in silence, with a melancholy face. Without a word he listened to the virago dropping hints about there being in this world cruel, heartless children who abandon their parents. "I know what you are thinking now," said the old man after drinking more and passing into his habitual state of drunken excitement. "You think I have let myself sink into the mire, that I am to be pitied. But to my thinking, this simple life is much more normal than your life. I don't need anybody, and I don't intend to eat humble pie. I can't endure a wretched boy's looking at me with compassion." After tea he cleaned a herring and sprinkled it with onion, with such feeling that tears of emotion stood in his eyes. He began talking again about the races and his winnings, about some Panama hat for which he had paid 16 roubles the day before. He told lies with the same relish with which he ate herring and drank. His son sat on in silence for an hour and began to say goodbye. "I don't venture to keep you," the old man said haughtily. "You must excuse me, young man, for not living as you would like." He ruffled up his feathers, snorted with dignity, and winked at the women. "Goodbye, young man," he said, seeing his son into the entry. "Attendez." In the entry, where it was dark, he suddenly pressed his face against the young man's sleeve and gave a sob. "I should like to have a look at Sonitchka," he whispered. "Arrange it, Borenka, my angel. I'll shave. I'll put on your suit. I'll put on a straight face. I'll hold my tongue while she is there. Yes, I will hold my tongue." He looked round timidly towards the door, through which the women's voices were heard, checked his sobs, and said aloud, "Goodbye, young man. Attendez." End of section 10.